The Long Good Friday is the film that made Bob Hoskins a star. It had quite a convoluted history though, being shot in 1979 but not released to cinemas until 1981. This 4K UHD though has come to market in 2024, so a bit more of a delay there. But I think it's really a rather good 4K release. The history of The Long Good Friday, its convoluted history, is detailed well within the extras. Now, Arrow Films had previously put out a Blu-ray of The Long Good Friday, so I'm not sure if all those extras are included on that. I suspect they are, but if you like the film, then if you're happy with the Blu-ray disc, I can't compare the Blu-ray to the 4K, as there's just the 4K in this pack. But the extras are worth going through. I found them interesting. There's quite a long making of, and in that they detailed that the backers of the film, which was the Loot Grade organisation, they got cold feet about it, and when it was finished they wanted it cut to less than 90 minutes because they had a deal to sell it to ITV, one of the ITV companies over here at the time, for £1 million, and therefore get their investment back without any risk of not selling this to a distribution company for cinemas. I think they were shocked at some of the violence, but today you look at that violence, it's all comparatively tame. The makers of the film, they somehow managed to buy it back, and a year and a half later they did find a distribution company to put it into cinemas. I don't think it did very well in America. I can understand why, because Bob Hoskins' voice, I think we all know Bob Hoskins from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Mona Lisa. There's a few films he's very well known for. He's got a very good London Cockney accent, and there's a lot of Cockney rhyming slang in this. And within the booklet, as John Amondo Chelovic would call it, the booklet within this, it has got a listing of all the Cockney rhyming slang you might need a translation for. There's also a poster in here. It's a bit tacky, really, a bit cheap, and it's this new artwork. But also within the pack you do get an alternative inlay, so a reversible inlay, and that's the original artwork, the original poster for The Long Good Friday. So that's what I prefer in this. Now, the first time I looked at this, I wasn't overly impressed with the image quality. It was nice, it looked good, but I think it was because it was 1:85 to 1, and I prefer the scope ratio 2.40 to 1. Gives me a wider, bigger picture in here. I decided to take a second look at it last night before doing this review, and I was prepared for that 1:85 to 1 imagery. I scooted through a few of the chapters. I took an extensive look at the opening because there's quite a lot going on in the opening, and to see it a second time it was obvious really how the plot was being set up there, and that might confuse a few the first time like it did me. So I watched that a second time, then I went through a few of the other chapters, just looked at a minute here and there, and I thought the image quality was very good indeed, very filmic, good definition, good colour, good contrast, looked just like a 35mm print would have looked, a general release print. So another exceptional image quality release from Arrow, but remember it's a 35mm, it's not a 70mm or anything like that, so won't be particularly special. It's not anamorphic 35mm for the scope ratio even, but very good image quality for what it is. The sound originally was mono sound, and it defaults to that, and you have to opt for Dolby Atmos via the menu. If you don't, you're just going to get the mono sound. I was expecting that I would prefer the mono sound, but I put it into Atmos and got it in the 5.1 through here, the 5.1 THX, and I really liked it. It's quite unusual. I thought this is actually better than the original sound. So someone's done a very good job on that. You have to see what you think, but I preferred it to the original mono sound. So the film that made Bob Hoskins a star did something for Helen Mirren as well, potentially too, but there's a whole load of them in here. You'll recognise them, such as Paul Freeman from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Belosh, or Belloc as he's called, and even Pierce Brosnan, which was either his first or second film role playing a hitman. A rather good acting job to start out with, because he doesn't say a word, but my does it work. So I thought it was a thoroughly good 4K disc, a very good film, and something akin to Get Carter, whereas in Get Carter we see Newcastle in the early 1970s, was that 70 or 71. In this we see parts of London such as the Docklands to the east of Tower Bridge in 1979. And it's not often you see that sort of thing in film, and all sorts of other areas of London you don't normally see, and not quite as grimy as Newcastle was maybe 8, 9, 10 years before, but it shows London as it was then. It's largely how I remember London as a child, and very nice to see it. So it's got a lot going for it, the Long Good Friday, and particularly with image quality and sound quality like this. I suppose the final thing to say about it, running time just under 2 hours, an hour and 54 minutes I think, and it has a nice fine grain film structure to it. So as I said, a 35mm print on a 4K disc. Now I've been purchasing some other discs with the intention of reviewing them. One of them I'm sure people will be relieved about because I've had so much hassle over this one, the 4K of Highlander, one of my favourite films from 1986, and although I won't probably watch the whole of this 4K disc, I'll go through a lot of it, but I'll also show you, if I can get away with it, some clips from the Super 8 feature, which is quite a rare Super 8 feature. Doug Meltzer's got one, Mark Norton I think, but there's very few in the world it seems, but I've got one of them which I purchased in the early 90s at the British Film Collectors Convention from Duran. The next one is another one that when this came out a little while ago, 2 years ago now, everyone was saying, you've got to review Poltergeist, it's the best 4K yet, or one of the best. I said, well, I don't really want to have a look at that yet. I think it was £25 when it first came out, might have even been more than that. And I've had the Super 8 feature from the early 90s, which is just about a perfect Super 8 feature. So that'll give you a clue as to why this looks so good on 4K disc, because it looks exceptional on Super 8. What does that tell you? It tells you it had a very good original shoot, a high quality negative. Now, I've shown this one before, but the reason I got Raiders is because I also got that on Super 8. That's another very good Super 8 feature. Not of the same quality as Poltergeist, but I can go into detail of that. And another purchase I made recently, which was one when I was up in London, I think 2 years ago, it might have been 2.5 years ago. Ridley Scott's latest, The House of Gucci, latest at the time, came out, and the Blu-ray was available in FOP, and I thought, oh, I'll wait a while. Well, finally I've just purchased a copy, so there we are. Looking forward to having a look at another Ridley Scott. Don't suppose it'd be as good as Gladiator, Blade Runner or Alien, Thelma and Louise, but you never know. And one last one to mention, which has been loaned to me by Mark. Thanks Mark. So this arrived a few days ago. He wanted me to have a look at the Hobbit trilogy because he's so impressed with the image quality. And I've had a sneak peek at the first one, and it does look very nice, which is a very nice surprise because I'd had several people tell me how awful these looked in the cinema. I think there was suspicions that it was 60 frames a second or something, so it looks as bad as Gemini Man, and I think those of us that have seen Gemini Man just as a 2D, not a 3D, which is what it was made for, I think we can all understand where those criticisms were coming from, but thankfully looks rather good. It's not Tenet or anything like that, but thankfully it does look like it will be an enjoyable romp, but perhaps a little more of a rerun or a remake of The Lord of the Rings and not the book I read as a child, but looking forward to finally taking a look at those. So I've been working on a few other things. We've got a film fair coming up in St Albans with Talking Pictures, Renowned Films, and we can't fit the 24-foot wide screen in there, so we've had to sort something else out. We can have a 9 to 10-foot wide screen, I think it is, which it's been jolly good getting hold of that at short notice, but we should make a good day of it. Ben Wales has been trying to get my portable 35mm sorted on the sound front, so that if we can, we'll run some 35mm shows on that smaller 9-foot, 10-foot wide screen. So anyway, I think that brings me to the end. Yet another video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing, so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating similar content to this in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.